I hate intros. My next life is Villainess Season 1, Episode 1. We kick things off with the main character, Katarina Claus, as a kid who is kind of a pretentious dick. Her father quickly introduces her to another character in Gerald Stewart. She immediately develops a bit of a crush on Gerald, and while walking around with him, she suddenly trips and hits her head. When this happens, she remembers a past life as a high school otaku. In her past life, she was running late for school, ran into the street, and was killed at the age of 17. When she wakes up and gathers her bearings, she realizes that she's now a part of a noble family, and also that she's engaged to Gerald. While reflecting on her new circumstances, she realizes that she's a part of an Otoma game that she was playing before she died. Not only that, but she was reincarnated as the antagonist of the story. When she thinks back on all the possible scenarios in the game, she realizes that nothing really ends well for her character. The happiest ending she can hope for is being exiled, and the bad ending is her getting killed by Gerald. Katarina devises a plan and decides that the best course of action is to get good at magic and increase her sword fighting skills so that she can find a job even if she's exiled. This cues a short training montage showing her getting stronger. Later that night, she is introduced to a new sibling that she's going to be living with in Keith. Inside of the game, Keith was a mistress's son, so he gets picked on continuously by his siblings. He's lonely or some shit, so he turns into a man whore. The main character makes him realize that he could go monogamous, so he does, and if Katarina interferes with their relationship, she is exiled or killed. Katarina comes to the conclusion that in order to prevent this from happening, she has to give Keith lots of attention, that way he doesn't turn into a man whore and then fall in love with the heroine. The two start hanging out all the time, then Katarina wants to see some of his magic, so he makes a giant dirt doll that dances. Katarina's kinda fucking stupid, so she runs up and gets smacked in the face, knocking her unconscious yet again. Turns out Keith has really strong magic, but he has a hard time controlling it, which is why this happened. This isn't the first time this has happened, because Keith had also injured one of his brothers growing up, so he's extra hard on himself about this one. Katarina tries explaining that it's not that big of a deal, but he insists that he can't be around her, which is in turn exactly like the game. Katarina isn't having any of that shit, so she breaks down the door and tells him that she's still not afraid of him, and they continue being friends. Episode 2. While eating dinner, Katarina's dad tells her that she's received an invitation to a tea party. She's kind of a slob with no manners, so they send Keith along with her to keep an eye on her. When they arrive, we get an introduction of a new character in Mary Hunt. During the party, Katarina slips off by herself and ends up running into Mary. Mary is really good at taking their garden of flowers they have. Since Katarina is struggling in her farming endeavors to grow vegetables, she asks Mary to come back to her place to help her out. With the help of Mary, she is able to successfully grow some vegetables, and the two bond over the course of that time and become friends. Keith informs us that Mary was often verbally abused by her older sisters and didn't feel like she had a place to belong, which is why she's so happy to make a new friend. He also tells her that Mary is engaged to Prince Alan, who is Gerald's twin brother. Alan apparently had a sheltered upbringing that made him spoiled and egotistical. He feels a deep rivalry as well as an inferiority complex to his brother Gerald. Later on, we get the official introduction to Prince Alan, who isn't exactly too happy to see Katarina. The little fucker demands that Katarina stop seducing Mary. Things get a little heated, so Alan challenges her to a showdown. He lets Katarina decide, and since she doesn't have too many skills, she challenges him to a tree climbing contest. He obviously loses, but he keeps on coming back every day to challenge her again and again. After losing over and over, one day he shows up and Gerald is there. They decide to change the competition to a piano contest today. Even though Alan wins, since Gerald is there, his inferiority complex makes him put down his skills. Katarina feels bad, so she catches up to him and explains that nobody's perfect, including his brother, because he's actually afraid of snakes. They kinda bond or whatever, and this makes Alan feel a little bit better. Episode 3. A couple days later, Katarina gets an invitation to another tea party hosted by Gerald and Alan. While at the tea party, Katarina wanders off by herself and ends up running into a dog. The dog winds up chasing her, so she is forced to hide in a tree. While in the tree, she hears a group of kids antagonizing another character. She jumps down from the tree, and for whatever reason, this scares off the kids. This is where she first meets the albino Sophia. The two don't really talk much because Katarina runs off before she can say anything. Also attending the party is Sophia's brother, Nicole. Katarina then runs into Sophia at the party. She learns that both her and Sophia enjoy romance novels, so she invites Sophia to her house to talk about it. When she comes over, she also brings along her brother. When she sees him, she realizes that Nicole is another route in the game. Interacting with him could cause a doom flag, but she decides that it's probably okay to interact with Sophia still. The two enjoy themselves sitting around and talking about books. Just before they leave, Katarina finds out that Sophia is a bit of a reject because of the way she looks. Despite that, Katarina still wants to be her friend, which means a lot to Sophia. Sophia, Mary, and Katarina all get together and talk about books often. Then one day while she was at Sophia's house, she winds up talking to Nicole. They talk about his family, and he ends up smiling, which makes her a little hot and bothered. Now we jump ahead 7 years to where Katarina is 15. The whole gang is all grown up and get together to celebrate Katarina's birthday. Most of the party are all of the guys sending subtle signals that they want to fuck her. Episode 4. We see Katarina and the others heading off to the Magic Academy where the story of the game takes place. After their first day, we learn that, just like in the game, Gerald had come across the main character. Soon after, we find out that Keith had encountered the main character also. The only difference is that in the game, Keith had hit on the main character, whereas now he had only met her because she had dropped a handkerchief. Shortly after, while walking through the halls, Katarina then comes face to face with the heroine of the game in Maria. The two don't say anything as they pass each other, but Katarina knows for sure that this is the heroine. After considering all of her options again, Katarina decides that she needs to become a farmer so that if she goes into exile, she'll have something to fall back on instead of sword fighting and magic. With the school's permission, she begins growing a little crop. Just like in the game, Katarina's friends had joined the student council. This makes her go to the student council office where she meets the student council president and Serious Dick. While there, she ends up running into and talking with Maria. Maria is a bit of a baker and Katarina loves sweets, so she requests that Maria make her some sweets sometime, and the two seem like they're getting along. Later on, Katarina comes across Maria being bullied for being a commoner. They knock Maria's delicious pastries onto the ground, and this pisses Katarina off, so she deters them from bullying her. Episode 5. It doesn't seem like any of the characters from the game have taken a serious interest in Maria yet. That aside, Katarina hears that she's still being bullied by nobles, so she asks Keith to help find a way to protect her. They come to the complex conclusion that they just need to stay with her, and if they do that, that will deter the bullying. Again, the same formula ensues. Katarina comes across Maria getting bullied, and she saves them. The two grow closer, all that good stuff. A couple days later, Katarina decides that she wants to learn more about farming, so she drags Keith along to some fields to learn how they grew them. After the two of them are finished, they decide that since they're near Maria's hometown, they should go visit her on her day off. They find out in the local village where her parents live, so they start heading to Maria's house. They get caught by two girls saying that Maria's real father is actually a noble and that her family has fallen apart. Once they arrive at Maria's house, they all talk with her and her mother. We then get some more backstory on Maria. While Maria was growing up, everything was relatively normal until she realized she had light magic. Because of this, everybody in the village started assuming that Maria was an illegitimate child of a noble. Maria started practicing baking in an attempt to make some new friends, but none of them gave a fuck. Now her mother is just happy that she has some friends and that she took up baking again. Episode 6. Now we hop ahead to where everybody is on summer vacation. Keith is the first one to give off some rapey vibes where he almost kisses Katarina while she's sleeping. Gerald invites Katarina out to a lake, most likely to seduce her, but then all of the side characters wind up joining them. A bunch of filler content ensues, and then everybody heads back. Once they're back, Katarina goes out shopping with Sophia and Nicole. Sophia winds up giving them some alone time because she's secretly rooting for her brother to date Katarina. He tries making a move on her, but of course you can't ruin the harem dynamic, so she doesn't notice. The rest of the episode consists of similar events with each of the guys, insinuating that each of them is interested in Katarina, and of course she's oblivious. Episode 7. We get a flashback of Katarina's best friend from her past life. The girl is named Sasaki, and she had met Katarina when Katarina fell on her from a tree. The two became very close and always talked about the game she's stuck in called Fortune Lover. When she dies, her best friend's really sad, and so she wishes that when she dies, she gets to meet her in another life. Turns out this flashback is actually a dream that Sophia is having. Now we jump ahead to where the students have to undergo a practical exam. They are tasked with going into ancient ruins where a great mage used to live. There are various booby traps inside the ruins which test the students' magical abilities. One of the traps ends up separating Katarina from the rest of her group. Sophia and Nicole then use their wind magic to pick up on her voice and find out where she is. While they're heading to her, she was getting kind of hungry, so she picked up a sharp stone and was cutting mushrooms with it. She's kind of fucking stupid, so she almost slips and falls, but Sophia gets there just in time to save her. Someone then uses wind magic to protect them from the fall. At first, Katarina thought it was Sophia, but it turns out it was someone else. They then realized that the stone Katarina was using to collect mushrooms is actually the stone they're looking for, so they wind up passing the test. Episode 8. One day, Mary and Katarina decide that they need to go to the library in order to study. It wouldn't be much of a harem story if they didn't find a way to include all of the other side characters, so everybody heads to the library. All of them wind up getting sucked into a magic book except for Mary and Maria. The magic book will only let them out if one of them can attain their greatest desire. Of course, all of them want to nail Katarina, so they're put in a situation where they're trying to seduce her. Mary and Maria are watching all of these stories unfold, and none of them are actually attaining their desire. It seems seems like they're gonna be stuck in there forever until it gets to Katarina's turn. Katarina's only desire is to eat more sweets. She starts out by eating a gingerbread house and then starts inhaling all of the sweets around her until she's so big that the book can't contain her. This sets everybody free and they all go back to normal. Episode 9. We learn that Katarina has passed all of her classes and is advancing to the next grade. Then Katarina's maid Anne starts to recap all of the current standings with everybody. Long story short, Gerald is obviously in love with Katarina and is engaged to her. Keith is in love with Katarina and very opposed to Gerald marrying her. Alan is in love with Katarina, shocking, but doesn't understand his own feelings well enough to know that he's in love with her, like a fucking idiot. Now we get into the Yuri action where Mary is actually in love with Katarina also. She even suggested to Katarina that they both call off their engagements to their fiancés and run off together, but Katarina thought she was joking. Then there's Nicole. Rarely changes his expressions, but he does with Katarina, and why is that, everybody? Yes, it's because he's in love with her. And as for Sophia, she hates this bitch. She hopes she dies. Now, actually, she's in love with her too, but not in a romantic sense, so it's all good. She just wants her boy Nicole to get in there, so she's constantly dropping hints to Katarina. And Mary loves her, so she cooks her lots of sweets. Later on, all the girls make plans to have a pajama party. While there, they all try to probe each other for who they want to fuck. While that's going on, we start to get a little bit more backstory on her maid Anne. She was born to a cold-hearted prick named Baron Shelley and one of his maids. Tragedy struck when she was 15 because her mother was killed in a house fire. She then found out that she was being kept around by Baron as a tool so that she could be married into another family. During the fire, her arm was badly burned, and Baron sees this as damaged goods, so he has no use for her and kicks her out of the house. This is when she was forced to become a maid for the arrogant and selfish Katarina. After Katarina had bumped her head, her personality of course changed, and she finally made Anne feel like she had a place that she belonged. Katarina even stood up to Baron when he came around looking to force Anne into a political marriage. This gives Anne the confidence to finally stand up to the prick and tell him that she's not getting married. She feels like Katarina is the one responsible for making her who she is, and because of that, she vows to follow her no matter what. The next day, it's finally harvest day for Katarina's crops, so everybody comes out to help her. Episode 10. We come in on the group of girls that were bullying Maria. They're in the middle of accusing Katarina for doing a bunch of evil deeds. This is following the exact plotline of the game when you get a doom flag. When the side characters get there, they're handed documents proving that Katarina has been doing evil things. In the game, this is when all of the characters turn on Katarina and she is either killed or exiled. The difference is that when all the side characters read everything, they just get confused and say that Katarina's too stupid to plan any of this. It seems that the bullies' plans are foiled, so they run off. While they're running off, Maria notices some sort of black miasma radiating from the girls. Later on, while walking, Maria again notices this black miasma, so she wants to go investigate by herself. Why bring a friend, right? Well, this backfires and the bitch goes missing. Everybody goes out looking for her, but nobody can find her. After 3 days of her being gone, Gerald finally gains some new information. It seems the girls that were making the accusations against Katarina couldn't remember why they did it. They don't even remember where they got the documents with the accusations on them. This makes Gerald believe that somebody with dark magic might be interfering. Katarina had never heard of dark magic, only light magic, which Maria had. Dark magic is a well-kept secret, and only a few people actually know about its existence. It allows one to manipulate someone else's heart, amplifying negative emotions like envy and hatred. Once the people have been affected by the dark magic, they also can't remember how it happened. On top of that, dark magic can't be detected by anybody except for people who can use light magic. This is why Maria was the only one who could see the miasma radiating from the girls. And the last little side note about dark magic is that nobody is born with it, it has to be gained by sacrificing a human life. Later on, while sitting in the courtyard, Katarina is approached by Sirius Dick. While talking with him, she suddenly remembers her friend from her past life talking about how there was a hidden character. This character is a dark magic user, a ginger, and has gray eyes just like Sirius Dick. In the game, if you fail to win him over, he actually kills all of the side characters in the worst ending possible. She inadvertently asked him if he could use dark magic. At first he plays innocent, but then he ends up coming clean, saying that he was the one responsible for abducting Maria. She came around asking why there was miasma radiating from him, so he tries to erase her memory. When that fails, he uses some fumes on her to knock her unconscious and take her away. He makes it clear that his target is really Katarina. The only reasoning he gives is that he hates her because she befriended all of these lonely guys, and that makes her a hypocrite. All that being said, Katarina feels like he's in pain and agony and kind of feels bad for him. In the last couple of scenes, she tries to make him feel better, but then he uses his black magic on her. Episode 11. We get some ReZero vibes when Katarina wakes up in her old life. Everything seems like it's normal except for the fact that she feels like she's forgetting something. Back in the other world, Katarina has been asleep for 2 whole days and the doctors don't know why. We then get a series of pointless flashbacks from all of the side characters explaining how she influenced their lives. In a cliche fashion, they all unanimously decide at the exact same moment that they need to be by her side and send her their positive energy. Now we hop back on over to Katarina, who goes to speak with Sasaki after school. Sasaki explains that this isn't her world anymore and that people are waiting for her. Katarina then begins to hear the voices of everybody in the other world calling out to her to wake up. She then remembers the other world and decides that even though she feels comfortable in this world, she needs to get back to the people she loves. The world starts falling apart as Katarina prepares to make her departure. For whatever fucking reason, Sasaki knows the location of Maria, so she tells her that she's in a hidden room in the storehouse. Just before Katarina is gone, Sasaki promises to stay by her side as Sophia. This confirms that Sophia is indeed the reincarnate of Sasaki. Once Katarina wakes up, everybody gets all emotional or whatever, and then they all head out to confront Sirius and get Maria back. They quickly find Maria, set her free, and then they proceed to confront Sirius in the last couple of scenes. Episode 12. Once everybody gets to Sirius, we get a flashback of him as a kid. His real name isn't actually Sirius Dick, it's Raphael Walt. He was born because his mother was a maid and had an affair with a Marquis. The Marquis's wife had found out about the affair and so she targeted his mother. The Marquis and his wife had also had a son named Sirius Dick, but he was sickly and was going to die. The wife decided that she was going to transfer Sirius's soul into Raphael's body. This would ultimately save her son's life as well as get back at Raphael's mother. She prevents a man from getting to his family in order to force him to perform the ritual for her. Because he has no choice, he sacrifices Raphael's mother by stabbing her to death and then makes the transfer using that energy. Once the transfer is complete, the man who performed the ritual is also stabbed and killed by her underlings. What the wife didn't understand is that the transfer was only for information. Raphael had received all of Sirius's memories, but he was still himself. He took on the identity of Sirius Dick to plot his revenge against the wife. Raphael calls Katarina a hypocrite, saying that she can save all of these other lonely guys, but he's different and she can't save him. She agrees that she can't save him, but instead she promises that she'll still stay by his side and give him somebody to talk to. This makes him think back on his mom and how she loved him and wanted him to have a good life. Upon remembering this, he decides to give up on his plans of revenge and become friends with everybody again. Then there's a surge of power because the man that was killed after he had performed the ritual actually started residing inside of Raphael's body. He was the one egging Raphael on so that he could get revenge on the wife for killing him. Raphael is able to free himself and the dark magic dissipates. After that, Raphael goes to the authorities and has the wife and her underlings arrested for what they did. We then hop on over to the second year's graduation party. Katarina is curious to see who Maria finally fell in love with. To no one's surprise, she says Katarina, and all of the side characters share this sentiment as well. Later on, we see that Raphael had made his return and he's going to be working for the Department of Magic, which is still on campus, so they'll see him around. The game's script has now ended, so Katarina doesn't know what's ahead for them. I'm going to be doing the future seasons, and you can find that on the left side whenever I'm finished with it, or you can check out all the My Next Life as a Villainess recaps in the playlist on the right side. You can also find the links in the description below, and the only thing I hate more than intros is outros.